any interruptions throughout the panel. And you can do that in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. So I'll start off by introducing you to our amazing panelists that we have involved today. So first of all, we've got Philippa Puchard, who is a trans artist, former teacher and bookseller based in South London. She's quite heavily involved in opening doors, having curated consecutive Pride Month queer art shows. And she also runs the Hackney Art Group as part of Opening Doors. And her first book is due to be released later this year. It's entitled Gender Pioneers, a celebration of transgender, non-binary and intersex icons, which I, for one, am very excited to get my hands on. Then we are also joined by Nicole Moore, who is an author, the editor of 3 anthologies, freelance writer, published poet, and visual artist, a very busy person. She's currently specializing in abstract realism paintings with a political narrative, and is also currently studying an MA in culture, diaspora, and ethnicity at Birkbeck. And our third panelist joining us today is BRYAN Murphy, who is an entertainer and the author of a new book as well, entitled Everybody on Stage for the Hawaiian Number, which I'm also looking forward to reading. It's based upon his life growing up gay in New York. He was present at the Stonewall riots and has fought for LGBTQ+ rights in both the US and the UK. So a big welcome and thanks to all 3 of our panelists who are going to be taking part in the panel today. As John mentioned, we are running audience Q&A at the end of the session. So if you have any questions that you think of at any point, if you just pop them in the chat, and then we will get to those at the end of the session. So just to start off with, I want to ask a question and go to each of our panelists. So the first question I'd like to ask is, can you tell us about how your LGBTQ identity has influenced your artistry or the other way around? And I think we'll start off with Philippa.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Emma. I mean, at different points, really. I mean, very early on, I was copying American comics. And at the time, there weren't that many superheroines around. And so I was favoring Wonder Woman over Superman and Batman. I think they were about the only 3 choices you had. Martian Manhunter, I think, was another one. That was about it, really. Before the Silver Age happened. And then I was sort of drawing my own comics, and I drew one which showed me transitioning when I was a teenager. Although I didn't transition then, but the comic did. And then later at college, I animated it. So that was kind of like the earliest presenting, I suppose, that I did, really, apart from sort of cross-dressing in secret. And then sort of getting into projects that I was doing, you know, initially it was sort of abstract stuff, and then I got into this very late on idea of making, like, which is relevant today, of course, the political statement of where trans, non-binary and intersex people are in history. And, you know, I think I'm up to something like over 200 people now that I've done portraits and biographies for. And then I was lucky that Jessica Kingsley are publishing, I think, 40 odd of them. And so, you know, that's my influence, really, the kind of the place I am in that sort of narrative of all these different people. That's it, I think, really.
Thanks, Philippa. Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of queer people who are creative experiences. Art is kind of your initial way of experiencing or experimenting with your identity and with your queerness.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll go to Nicole next with the same question. So how has your queer identity influenced your artistry, or the other way around?
Well, because I'm a writer as well as an artist, I had to do some writing about this because it's a question I've never been asked before. Something completely new, you know, for me to think about. And so over the weekend, I did that. So it helped me shape my thinking about how queerness shapes creativity anyway, you know. So this is I call it an exploration of the question rather than a kind of clear-cut answer. I'm not sure I've got the answer, to be honest. But it was interesting to think about it and explore it in my head. So I wanted to just give some context because it's LGBTQ History Month. I've chosen the 90s as a time to talk about, because it was a particularly poignant time period for me, because I was questioning my sexuality and transitioning into the LGBTQ plus community. Although back then we didn't have that term, it was called the gay scene. You know, I don't know. Everyone I knew it was just one word really, rather than all. I think it's wonderful that we have all these other terms to use. You know, and the queer question in transition for me looked like, you know, it was all going on in my head. It was an internal monologue, which lasted about 6 months. And then it led to me looking for my tribe. You know, I kind of needed to do that. And I found my tribe at Camden Black Sisters, a community organisation who ran Onyx, which was a monthly social and discussion group for Black lesbians and lesbians of colour. So that was that period of time. And I'm going to go on. There was so much going on in the 90s. I don't know. When I look back, I think, how did it all happen like that? But it's that for everyone, I suppose, there's a certain time that you remember that was significant for you. And it was that, although the 70s was pretty cool too. But it was significant, not just because of transitioning into queerness, but it was a period of growth and development on many other levels. So I was working full time in the voluntary sector. I've always worked in the voluntary sector since the 80s, really. And I was working for Age Concern Enfield. I was also a trustee and chairperson of Nhanda Black Women's Organisation, which was a registered charity based in multicultural Edmonton, North London. And it provided social, cultural and educational activities for women and families of African Caribbean heritage with a focus on Black women's health. But because of my interest in the arts, I made sure to bring those activities into, especially literary arts. So I kind of merged community development with art for about 8 years. And that was a wonderful sort of time period for me, really, in terms of that work, even though it was part-time, we call it, you know, wouldn't even call it work. It was just, I just was so enlightened by that period of time, really, doing that kind of activity. And then I was also studying I studied 2 6-month Birkbeck College courses in the evening. First one was Black Women's Writing, and that followed on with Black Women's History. And they were held at Claudia Jones' organisation in Hackney, East London, facilitated by Dorothea Smart, who is an acclaimed live artist, poet, and queer Black woman. And then between 97 and 99, I was studying a work-based learning MA at Middlesex University. So there was a lot of unlearning and new learning going on. I think that was key then, and it's still happening with my current studies. It's a lot of unpacking and unraveling stuff, and then you sort of like you almost go through this shedding of skin. That's the best way I can explain it, really, and then and growing a new one, kind of, if you can. And then so at Nhanda, the Black Women's Organisation, and my work in 97, it kind of peaked, if you like, because that was a year, it was a European year against racism, and the government's commitment to give full recognition to the Europe-wide threat constituted by racism and xenophobia. So as a result, the London Borough of Enfield put together this Under One Sun Festival and gave the opportunity for us to seek funding to put on an arts project. And so that I had this vision of a photography exhibition. I've never done anything like that before, by the way. But I had this vision, and I think that what lots of my creativity is, you know, I kind of break down those barriers to thinking that I can't do something by not thinking about what it involves. I want to have a go, I'll do it. So this exhibition was called, very simply, Images and Voices, Past, Present, Future. That was the remit we had to follow within the London Borough of Enfield. So it was a wide remit. And it involved a creative team of 3 Black committee members from the Handa that consisted of myself, my then partner, a gay woman who I'd met at Camden Black Sisters, and she joined the Handa, and then a heterosexual woman joined us as well. So it was a really interesting mix of committee members, and there was only 3 of us. It's not many people to put on what we did, to do what we did. And so I did the editing of the voices, and my partner did the photography, and we all took part in arranging and placing the photographs and the profiles. And I had a gut feeling that we could pull it off. We had a shoestring budget of £300. When I think about it, that was sort of, I don't know how we did what we did, but that's why I say sometimes you just have to think outside the box, really, about using the best resources you can find. We also got sponsorship from Safeway supermarket way back in the day. I don't know if anybody remembers Safeway. They gave us £50 worth of wine and refreshments for our private preview event. And so the exhibition itself, this vision I had, was also, it had to be inclusive and diverse. So it included images and voices from 40 everyday Black women from all walks of life and sexualities. And my aim, there were several aims really. One was to demonstrate the everydayness of Black women by providing a multi-dimensional version of their Blackness, a counter-narrative against the displacement of Black women's history, challenging the legacy of a historically colonial lens that continues to permeate British society's norms. And the other aim was to empower Black women and challenge and disrupt stereotypes made about Black womanhood. You know, the Jezebel, the angry Black woman, and especially the strong Black woman, so as to portray the multifaceted elements of being a Black woman. And all of this art and community activism provided texture and richness to these activities. My newly transitional queer sexuality was embedded in those experiences, and it was an exciting time. I would say the stars were in alignment then. It doesn't happen very often, but if you reflect back to those times when it does, it's really good to go back and review and evaluate what happened. I don't think I really saw it quite like that then, because you're so immersed in it. So the exhibition itself was held at Gallery 4 in Edmonton for 1 month, which was an ideal and spacious venue. It used to be a large blockbuster video shop. Remember video? Way back in the day. So the preview, which was really where I thought, wow, we did a preview. The exhibition's preview was enlightening for all involved, not just for the Black women featured in the exhibition, but for many of their friends and family. And it felt like a real exhibition preview, and the whole experience generated much discussion and discovery. So my boss at the time, the chief officer at Age Concern Enfield, he came along and he was surprised to read my profile, which said I grew up in a majority white household. So the inner lives of Black women featured in the exhibition were breaking down assumptions made about us. One older Black woman in her 60s who worked at Enfield Racial Equality Council said to me, I've never seen this many Black women in one space before. I was used to that with working with but you take it for granted. You sometimes have to realize that not everybody has those same experiences as you do. So I feel like I was probably quite privileged to be in that position at the time. So those those Black women that we were feeling empowered. That was one thing I need to say. And also we were also empowering those who came to the exhibition. And for some it was significant to see Black women in different guises in the form of photography, from the past to the present. So this was one of the first art projects that I carried out during my queerness transition. Obviously, having met my partner some years prior and working with her on this project meant that I was being supported in my queerness, along with the support of Camden Black Sisters. I think that's key, really. So things just flourished in that period of time. I would say I'd like to go back there. It's not the same now. I think I'm going to try and create a similar version of that, but it's not the same because the pandemic has thrown us all into some kind of well, you know what I'm talking about. It's not the same. Socializing is never going to be the same again, really. But anyway, so to close, when you talk about queerness shaping creativity, I'm still exploring what queerness means to me, really, especially in relation to my creativity. I think it's about looking at creativity from a far wider lens than from, say, one or two identities. And I like the idea of fluidity when it comes to queer transitioning. I see it as a process rather than there being this end journey. It just continues, it's fluid, and everyone has to find their own way. And it's the same with writing and making art. You could say I'm joining the dots. So I'll end there.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Nicole. I love what you said, especially about that constant process of learning and unlearning. And I think that's something we'll come back to in a little bit. So finally, I'd like to hand over to Bryan to answer the question, how has your LGBTQ identity influenced your artistry, or the other way around?
In my case, I've always been gay. So from the get-go. So I just happened to want to be an entertainer, and I became an entertainer performer, and here were my people. I found my group, and I think no matter what, if I had to become a corporate person, if you can believe that, a 9-to-5 suit and tie, I would have shown up and turned that into a gay experience for everyone, including myself. So being a singer, being an actor, everyone else just about was gay. So I was not using my creativity to perform. Luckily, in my case, I was able to then use my gayness in my work by becoming political. The first time I did that was related to the Anita Bryant thing in America. And the state of Florida was trying to pass an anti-gay bill. And I was able to use my talent to help raise money to fight that bill. We lost, allegedly. I wasn't there, but allegedly because the turnout from the gay community sucked eggs. So that was what I was told. But then I was able to take my gayness in my work and use it to our advantage. So this has always been my situation. Wherever I go, I show up and I'm gay before I get there. And when I leave, I like to think I've left other people with that knowledge of saying, hey, maybe gay ain't too bad. Bryan's good, so okay. So I would have been gay no matter what my career would have been. That was my life with that. End of.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Bryan. I think I would like to now jump to talking a bit about how having been creative practitioners in your own ways for decades, it would be interesting to talk about how what it's been like watching the art worlds and society at large's attitude to queer people shift over the past few decades, and how that's kind of influenced you as artists. I don't know if any of you would like to jump in.
Yeah, I could do that.
Thanks, Philippa.
I mean, one of the things which has happened recently, are the kind of LGBT groups in the galleries who are putting things on. So you have like V&A tours of their queer exhibits, and the Tate does similar things as well. And of course, the Tate did Queer British Art exhibition, and the Hayward did their Kiss My Genders. National Portrait Gallery did Claude Cahoon with Gillian Wearing. And there are lots of other little exhibitions going on. I'm a big fan of film, so I went to the Flare introductory evening. So I listened to the programmers. There's Zorian Clayton, who works for the V&A as well. And he's just been given 15,000, was it not 30,000 pounds to add to their trans and non-binary collection. And he has to spend 30,000 pounds on that within 18 months. So if anybody's got anything they want to sell, that's good. And also Jay Bernard, who's a writer, poet. She's another programmer, but she also is trying to organise something for next year's Flare, which happens about this time, for 2023. And she's trying to get 80s and 90s stuff, memorabilia, together for next year. So it's sort of relevant to what we're talking about here as well. But those are all really interesting stuff, you know, that's going on in the mainstream, I think. And then, of course, you've got, you know, lots of, I mean, the Hayward one, I think there were over 30 artists involved, and they're current artists who are working in different media. So, you know, I mean, you have the Tate doing historical stuff, and then the Hayward doing modern stuff, and then all the other little galleries around doing stuff as well. So, yeah, there's a lot going on, actually. And, you know, I can't remember that much going on before, really. So I think it's improving. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. I think there is definitely a greater conversation around questions of queer identity in the more mainstream art world, which is really incredible to see, for sure. Bryan, I think you had something to say.
I think the great thing that I have noticed is acceptance. Being a New Yorker, we believe in confrontation, and I believe put a face to it. And with more and more LGBT plus Q plus people deciding to come out at a younger age, it's showing the other side of the people that, okay, we should be able to love these people. Acceptance. When I first got here, my late husband, Roger, said when he was growing up, the only person he could look up to was either the guy from Are You Being Served, or the guy, Grayson, Shut That Door. Those were your examples of being queer. And he said he knew he wasn't like that. But since that time, things have changed. More people are willing to come out and say, this is me, this is my life, this is the way I am. And when you put a face to something, it's difficult for others to disregard you and make like you don't exist. And example in my life, I'm not a Trekkie. I don't do Trek thing, the Star Trek. But Nicole Nichelle said, I think she was Captain Uhura, Sergeant Uhura. She wanted to quit Star Trek after the first year. And Dr. Martin King said to her, you cannot quit. This is the first time you have a Black person not in a servitude role. You are one of the stars. You have a position in the show. You must stay in this show. Acceptance, put a face to it. My husband, who was British, quiet and reserved till he met me, but I forced him into positions where we're a couple, screw you if you don't like it. They have to be able to see us. So I believe in acceptance. The more that people get to know, oh, well, you know, my son is, my daughter is, they're not bad people. We will learn, people will accept us, and it's getting better over the years. It's getting better and better. And then people who are into arts, they will be willing to say, yes, I am a queer performer, I am a queer artist, I am a queer writer. And I think over time, more and more, it'll just be, oh yeah, he's a great artist. Oh, by the way, I think he's gay. Oh yeah, she's a great dancer. Oh, by the way, I think she's gay. She happens, lesbian, she happens to be whatever. not based upon her art or his artwork. And I see that changing. I've seen a huge change here in this country alone over the past several years. So that's great. Acceptance, put a face to it. Let them hate you, but at least let them know who they're talking about. And I believe in that.
Absolutely. That's why representation is so important. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Nicole?
Yeah, I was just thinking, it is all about voices with me, and because I'm very much writing a lot and artwork, and it all happens mostly in a solitary, state, in your studio or wherever you do work, and which is why I like to share, what we're, on venues and like this, or arenas, to call it whatever, because this is actually the first time I've ever done something in this way. I've spoken a lot about different things, about my art, about writing, about art. This is new, but it feels that it's about time. And so I think there is a lot of positivity, and there's also a lot of negativity, and there always will be. It's nothing, I'm used to going against the grain with my racial identity, my ethnicity, all of that is part of me, and it's nothing new. So I think that, what the heck, I'm going to go with it on all levels now. I'm not holding back. This is me. Take me as I am, or not. That's it. So, but it's actually about being brave. It's not about just being quite nonchalant about it. It isn't for everybody. But I think that if you've got a voice, and you can share it, you give confidence to others. You might feel like, well, now I've heard that, then maybe I might want to sort of write about my experience. I actually think now I want to write about these kinds of experiences, because I've not really kind of gone there. I haven't really thought about it in that depth, and now I want to do that, because it's a really important part of me that I've kind of, it's not been hidden, it's just been quiet. And sometimes you need to be not loud, but you need to sort of stop being so quiet about yourself. You're made up of many identities, really, or personalities, whatever you want to call them. And there's multiple ways that we all work and live together. And why should we shy away all of our identities? Why don't we just bring them to the fore and see where that goes? I'm all about taking a journey into the unknown, leaping into, and you have to have a bit of faith in yourself. And if you do that, usually there's a net waiting for you. hopefully.
Thanks, Nicole. I think speaking about sort of transformation and the fluidity of your identities and your creative practice, I'm interested to hear how each of you feel that your art and or your identity and the intersection of those two things has shifted and changed over the years. I think, Nicole, you've already touched a little bit on that. Philippa?
I think, well, I'm probably in the best time of my life, really, which is nice. And I'm feeling more together, more myself. I'm doing more of what I want to do, more of what I like to do. I'm being more successful in doing it, really. The kind of difficulties of sort of 9-to-5 life and relationships and things like that, probably mostly behind me now. This us now, this as different groupings of LGBT plus people, is kind of like more my family and more my home now, I think. I want to do things for it,
That's really wonderful to hear, Philippa. BRYAN?
Again, let people know who you are. It's your life. I've heard people say, oh, if I told my mother, she'd die. If I told my uncle, they'll throw me out. It's your life. When you die at 70 years old, 80 years old, 90 years old, you die alone. live your life. For some people, it's not easy. I understand that. I was fortunate. My life, it's always been easy, but it's your life. Living your life for other people will always make you unhappy at the end. So you may as well do it, enjoy yourself. I've heard people say, oh, well, when I told my friends, they were angry at me, but they were angry because you didn't trust them to tell them. They weren't angry because you were gay. They weren't angry because you were lesbian. They were angry because you didn't trust them to tell them the truth. Live your life. Get out there and enjoy it. It's short. And as we've seen, especially the last 2 years, life is short. I lived through AIDS in America. Life can be very short. Enjoy it. Don't wait. Tomorrow ain't promised. And I live my life that way every day. Some people say I kind of force it on others, but then again, I'm a New Yorker, and then I'm from Brooklyn, which just adds to that stereotype. And as a friend said, sometimes a roll of paper will get a fly instead of a bazooka. I'm a bazooka person. I may kill the wall, but I'm gonna get that fly. I'm in your face. This is me. Love it or leave it. And what you think about me is none of my business. I don't care. I prefer, it's nice if you like me, but it doesn't matter. Live your own life. I see these, when I read articles about these young kids who kill themselves because this is horrible, it terrifies me, that they don't have someone to look up to, someone that they can trust and be themselves. And I think by doing things like this, it will encourage others to say, it is my life. I should live it how I want to do it, not how someone else wants me to do it.
Absolutely. And I think we're all role models in more ways than we realize, as queer people living our truths.
Yes.
And I'm giving you a call the next time I need a pep talk, Bryan. That was brilliant.
I charge by the hour. Truffles, your diamond truffles.
I'd like to go over to Nicole now, just talking. You've touched a bit about how, recently your art has become a little bit more political. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I have to thank Birkbeck College, because when I started my MA last year, I'm on my second year now, my lecturer found out that I did art, and one of the lecturers, and she said, you really must incorporate your art work with your academic work. And I thought, really? I just got like permission to sort of breathe, really. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea. But I didn't know how that, I physically, in my brain, it was like, how's that going to work then? And then I did an option called Race, Law, Literature last year, which was the most wonderful module, because we looked at creativity, we looked at poetry, novels, short stories, the range, all with that triad of race, law, literature, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin. It was just like, I was just in heaven, I was just like, oh, I can't believe I'm here, because I didn't know that was coming in the course. And that's my background is in literature and in writing and poetry and all of that. So yeah, I really did. I thought, wow, this is an academic course. How could that be? So anyway, and the option was that we could do, if we wanted, we could do a creative writing assignment as opposed to an academic assignment. I thought, really, as well, So I incorporated, I topped and tailed my assignment with a piece of art, or two pieces of artwork. The subject was around racism in education. And I'd already done this series of Black women's art, which is on my website as a part of Black History Month in 2018, called Women of Colour Portraiture. And so I used one of the relevant pieces that was of a young version of a black woman, if you like. And also I did a piece that was called Hair Power, because in my piece I talked about hair discrimination, particularly Afro hair discrimination that is going on in schools as we speak. And how the legislation in the Equalities Act in 2010 needs to be amended to include Afro hair, because it's a grey area again. And there's a lot of discrimination going on against people with dreadlocks, Afro hair, So yeah, and so I was feeling empowered by that whole experience of bringing in my art with my writing, and so this month I decided that was where I want to take my art. I want to not separate my art from my writing anymore, because they were separate, to be honest. And now I'm thinking about how I can bring in new art with some of the writing I've done, and also write new pieces related to some of the artwork I've done that all fits with the political art remit. And that's exciting for me, because now I've got a kind of a direction, if you like, because what I don't do is just random pieces of artwork anymore. I used to do lots of it. I mean, I needed to at the beginning. You have to explore and think, see what you like doing, what you don't like doing. I don't like making mess, basically. I know that I'm I know what that is, but I want it to be tidy when I'm working. I'm not one of these throwing paints. I did try it. I've tried it and I thought, no, don't like that. I don't mind splashing paint, but basically I know what I like to do and what I don't like to do. So I've worked out all of those things, and now it's time to sort of think, right. So it's a series of artwork that I'll be doing, because a series is really interesting, because what you get then is a lot of experience about there might be variations of what you're doing, but you also get a lot of practice about one particular type of artwork, maybe. And I learned that from the two series that I've done on my art website. So I'm going to, but again, it's got to be with the writing in mind. And so art and writing have got a kind of marriage going on, which is really cool. So I'm in the honeymoon period now, which is really, really quite a nice place to be. So political art and art and literature, that's my new kind of vocation, if you like. So watch that space.
Thanks, Nicole. It's really inspiring to hear from someone who's such a lifetime student and who's constantly looking to learn and grow and develop as an artist. Thanks so much. I would just like to remind everyone, if you've got any questions, just to pop them in the chat, and we will ask them in a little bit. But before we throw the floor open, I would like to give each of our panelists an opportunity to toot their own horn. And I would like to ask you each, what is your proudest moment in your career as an artist? So we'll go to keep the rotation going and go to Philippa first.
I mean, now really, I mean, I've been saying, haven't I? Yeah, I mean, I'm being published, and that's the main thing. Like Nicole was saying, it's a series of things, and it becomes a sort of, what's the word? So, it kind of has its own momentum, and so it's an ongoing thing, which has a validity and a kind of power of its own, really, I think. And hopefully, I mean, it will be used in other ways as well, I mean, I hope I've got a lot of years left, really. So I don't want to say this is going to be my highest achievement in my life. I mean, it may be what I've done most importantly now, but I was looking at other main artists who's had a longevity, and it wasn't always consistently successful. They had periods of in and out of fashion. Again, what Nicole was saying, I mean, like the Serpentine exhibition of Faith Ringgold, when was that? A couple of years ago. That was her first solo exhibition in Europe. I mean, and she's still going, I think. And other people who are 80s and 80s, 90s. I read obituary of Carmen Herrera, Cuban artist. She's just died, and she was 106 and still working. I mean, all power to them. And hopefully we can all, well, like what Brian was saying, get the youngsters working. I think get the older people working.
Yeah. For those who maybe missed the introduction, I'll just repeat the title of Philippa's forthcoming book. It's entitled Gender Pioneers, a celebration of transgender, non-binary and intersex icons. And it is forthcoming in August this year.
Yeah.
Philippa, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the process that you went through writing the book. I'd love to hear about the research process and how you kind of came across all of the icons that you talk about in the book.
Yeah. Well, Marsha Johnson and Sylvia were the first two. Obviously, Brian's nodding.
I knew Marsha.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, so sad as well.
Yeah, very.
She'd still be here, yeah. But they were the start, and I did those in the art group. And then got the idea of maybe a few more, and then it got to be the point where, I was planning the exhibitions, the queer art exhibitions, and thinking I could do a few more again and have those in the exhibition. So initially, the portraits and the biographies were for exhibiting on the wall, and then when it got too big for that, the idea was then to maybe use them in different ways. I suppose ultimately it should be online as well. But yeah, it's gone through various sort of variations. Yeah.
Well, it's very exciting, and I'm sure there's quite a lot of people excited to read it.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to Brian next.
Being the shy, unassuming person, Jonathan, being the shy, quiet, unassuming person that I am, this is my book. Here's my commercial. It's called Everybody on Stage for the Hawaiian Number by BRYAN Murphy, and I'm dressed as an Egyptian pharaoh, which doesn't make sense with the title. That's my humor. And in the book, I talk about how I would never take garbage from anybody. I was in high school, and there was a teacher who was absolutely gorgeous, not my type, but absolutely gorgeous. He was Hollywood casting 101 for the college football jock. And one day I was looking at him, and he resented it, and he invited me out to step outside. And I said, oh no, right here on school property, you touch me, there goes your future. Then I was in a job once, and the guard on the door would make comments when I passed by. And one day I laid into him, and he never bothered me again. I wouldn't take crap from anybody. And I talk about it in the book. And as for the highlight of my career, besides finishing this book, which the lockdown gave me the time finally, was there were so many, and I narrowed it down to 3 times in my career on stage. And the highlight for me was doing a charity night for the Gay Softball League in New York City. And in the venue, when I was through performing my set, the noise, the yelling, the cheering was so loud. It was deafening. And because I was higher than the audience, I was reacting to the sound waves. And I said, so this is what sound torture is. I understood it. So that was one of the highlights. Another one was working in Costa Rica, and I was able to do my show in English and Spanish, and they had never seen anyone like me before. And that was my second highlight, I think, of my career. So I've had many, and I retired in 2010 when I lost my husband. So I could sit back and read my book now and say, oh, did I really do this? Wow, yes. So that's been my career, and still wanting to help and do other things. Now I don't perform to raise money, but I donate money, and I write letters, and I try to talk to people. And a couple of groups I Zoom with because I was home and not traveling, which I do most of the time, I could say, again, it's your life, live it.
That's wonderful, thank you. Very colourful life you've had, BRYAN.
Buy my book.
Another one for the reading list. And finally, Nicole, what's your proudest moment as an artist?
Well, if we're on the subject of books,
Oh, there we go.
Brown
One
Eyes,
the reading list.
it's one of my proudest moments because, like I said, I never put a book together ever. But like I didn't even know what I acted as an editor without calling myself an editor. That's how out the box that I kind of went. And I think that's what I like about creativity. If you don't have to name everything. And often if you think that, if you do, sometimes you can talk yourself out of something and say, oh no, I can't do that because I'm not an editor, or I'm not of this, or I'm not of that. And I even up to the point where I submitted this book's manuscript to the publishing company that I use, because I was funded by the Arts Council England to do this book. Thank you to the Arts Council. They funded 2 of my anthologies, and then because what happens with the Arts Council is they force you to be clear about what you want to do, and it had to be a community project, which of course it was, more like community publishing really, so it was really interesting, and I think the proudest moment was at the launch, when I think there was like over 70 people attending, and that was really because I'd done all this work at the Hand of Black Women's Organisation, putting on events. So all of those skills came in and they were quite handy. And I thought, well, no, you have to have a launch. Not everybody has launches when they publish a book, but I do. So yeah, that really led on to all sorts of other things as well. The journey of the book, Poetry Cafe events. I hosted a poetry night. So, you know, all of those in sort of spin-offs, if you like, were really, really cool. But yeah, Brown Eyes was where I kicked off my editing career, if you like. And I did another 2 within a 5-year period. So yeah, that's it.
That's great, thank you. I'm looking forward to reading all 3 of those books.
On my website. Yeah, I will.
Wonderful, thank you. So we're going to open the questions up to a question from the audience. So I have got a question here for BRYAN. How do you develop such a strong defense against the things life throws at you? If you were someone who maybe isn't as strong as you are, BRYAN, what is your advice?
You wake up every morning and you tell yourself, this is me. And if the other person doesn't like it, tough, it's my life. You pay your own bills, you pay your own mortgage, you buy your own food, you can dress yourself. No one else is doing this for you. Live your life. You get one shot at it. And when they say you only live once, no. You live every day. You only die once.
It's good.
There you go. Anybody else got any questions for our wonderful panelists? While we wait, I'm going to ask one more question. We're running quite short of time, but if you could all give me maybe one sentence just to answer the question. Have you got any advice? No, let's go with this question. What are your hopes for queer artists in the future? We'll go to Philippa first.
Well, I would hope queer artists become more mainstream. I mean, we're used to being on the fringes of things, but, you know, I was saying about the different exhibitions that have happened recently, you know, I would hope that progresses and, you know, we become more mainstream. Yeah, basically that really, yeah. More accepted, more mainstream.
Wonderful. BRYAN?
Acceptance. It won't matter who you sleep with.
Poetry. Nicole?
I think, you know, don't just leap into the unknown. It's about really just taking a chance, because like BRYAN says, you know, you're a long time dead, as basically, there's another way of looking at it. And And I actually, you know, I'm very private about my sexuality, but when I say that, I mean it, I'm just a private person. But today I thought, you know what, that stops. You know, no, really, why am I, you know, what have I got to lose? Okay, so like you say, people might look like, well, so what? You know, nobody's going to love you, every part of you. You know, that's a tall order anyway. So I don't think that you can expect everyone to like what you know, but then somebody will like what you're doing and or be influenced by what you say, or think, well, actually, I'd like to do some writing or artwork about my, you know, my creativity and queerness is involved. Go for it, because yeah, it's that, you know, don't hold back. I think procrastination, get rid of that word now, procrastination. Yeah,
that's brilliant. I agree wholeheartedly with each of you. Thank you so much for that. All right, well, I think that brings us to the end of the panel. I would like to say a huge thank you to each of you for joining us, to Philippa, BRYAN, and Nicole. It's been really wonderful to get to know you all. And I think I speak for everyone when I say this has been really enlightening and really inspiring. So thank you.